The first 0 to 3 years out of the military, I call them your launch years. And it's just very important that that experience, that first layer out of the military is a very rich layer on leadership, on driving outcomes, on building trust, on building credibility, on establishing yourself as somebody who can drive outcomes and drive execution. So it's just a very important 0 to 3 years. And when you hit the 3 year point, that layer is beefy enough, it's deep enough, you've established enough track record, business post service, that you can add your build years on top of it. And in a business career, in the journey of a leader, your build years, years 3 through 7 on average, are now where you're starting, instead of leading people, you're leading leaders of people, and you're driving much larger outcomes, and you're starting to get a lot closer to the P&L, and you start entering a company's succession planning process, right? Because you're no longer just a military officer with a lot of business potential, right? That's really what you are in the beginning of your launch years, a very successful military officer who is unproven in business. And these are not, I'm not talking about internship jobs. I'm talking about going into real positions with real outcomes in your launch years. You don't want to end up leaving the military and moving in this direction, which if you take your military layer and you build a launch layer on top of it, and you only stay there a year, more than likely all you're going to do is chisel this layer. You're going to take your military layer and you're going to build another launch layer on top of it. And so you're not actually accomplishing anything. You're not building up. You're just moving across. And if you do that enough times, when you leave the service, you could be the highest caliber junior officer. There are many, many people like this that don't know how to do a good career search and don't know how to make a smart investment in their business career. And all they just do is move horizontally for their whole career. And eventually the leadership journey, people looking at you as young talent that they should invest in, corporations just going to stop doing that. 3 years is, instead of just doing one project, you've done 6 projects. Instead of just leading in one part of the business cycle, you've now led in several parts of the business cycle. It's the same thing maybe as being an athlete and having a really good season. Well, you're never going to have anybody retiring your number or renewing your contract in sports, using that analogy, with just one season. And so I think it's really important, when I say years 0 through 3 as being your launch years, that you look at those years as really important investment in building years. And if you leave early, you're not getting a payback for that time. All you're doing is chiseling the layer. And I see many military officers do this, where they actually interview a year after they've left the service for the same exact job that they could have had the year they left the service. So the real question is if you're interviewing for the exact same job you could have had 24 months ago, what have you accomplished in your 24 months? You should always be investing in moving up. And so instead of lateral moves or chiseling layers, 3 years is a really good planning time frame to say, I'm going to build a deep enough layer here that then I can build on top of. Your responsibilities go up in your build years. Your salary goes up in your build years. If you leave inside of 3 years, you're just not going to have anything to build on top of. You're just going across. You're just doing laterals. And I think you're giving up a lot of time, which is important when you're transitioning to a business career. You want to get your launch years knocked out early and fast. I'm not saying you have to stay inside your company for the whole time of this wedding cake, but if you leave at a year or 2 years in your launch stage, as opposed to waiting and leaving a company in a year or two into your build stage, you're literally talking 25 to 1 on the number of options that you will have available to you along your leadership journey, in your industry, in your company, outside your company. I mean, your marketability just skyrockets. So really, what should you do? If you leave the service and you're interested in a development candidate career and a journey as a leader, you should join a great company doing work that's going to hold your attention, learn how to be really, really good at it in your launch years. And whether you stay in your company in your build years or whether you move to a different company, you're always going to be stepping up. That's the advantage of working your way through this first layer as opposed to, leaving your company in 12 months and basically doing a do-over and a repeat.